In a train station in London, train guard Joe is finishing his shift. When he reaches his locker, he finds a letter saying he didn't get the promotion he applied for. As he furiously crumples the paper, the supervisor comes by to ask Joe to cover the night shift because the night guard is sick. At first, Joe wants to say no, but ends up accepting when he notices his crush Ellen will be tonight's trolley girl. After the train takes off, Joe begins inspecting all the passengers' tickets. Most of them take it well and show it to him, but many passengers get annoyed and treat Joe poorly. For doing his job, a woman drops her cane, and when Joe helps her, he gets startled by a sudden growl. But it's just a lady's dog. Kate claims she lost her ticket and gets angry when Joe makes her pay the fine. In a corner, Billy changes into more comfortable clothes. Joe sees that the bathroom door has a sign that says out of order, and there's water coming out from it. When Joe bumps into Ellen, he finally tries asking her out. However, Elle turns him down. The fact passenger, Paul, is staring makes it all more awkward. For the next few hours, the train continues to travel peacefully under the rain and the full moon, with passengers getting off at each station until only a few are left. When it reaches the woods, a loud screech suddenly echoes in the cars and the train stops. Joe starts crossing the cars to learn what happened and sees a shadow behind a door. But when he's about to open it, he's startled by the speakers. The driver announces that they hit something on the road and asks the passengers to remain calm until they solve it. Then Joe finally opens the door and discovers Ellen's trolley fell. He tries to pick it up but can't, so Adrian ends up picking it up instead. Joe finds 2 sets of keys on the ground and is surprised to hear they both belong to Adrian. There are many passengers panicking, so Joe does his best to go around and calm them down. He also tries contacting the driver Tony on the radio, but he doesn't answer. So instead, he uses the speakers to ask the passengers to be patient. Meanwhile, Tony has left the train to check what happened and discovers they hit a deer, which is now stuck in the wheels. He tries to pull it out, but he isn't strong enough. At that moment, Tony hears a noise behind him, and when he turns around, a mysterious creature attacks him and begins eating him. His blood gets splattered on a window, but the rain washes it away before others can see it. On the train, Joe gets tired of waiting and uses his keys to enter the control car, only to find it empty. He then takes a look outside but doesn't see Tony there either. After telling Ellen to keep the passengers calm with some free snacks, Joe takes a longer look outside, yet still finds nothing. Next, Joe makes a call to the company's rescue team, who explain they're behind on schedule because the storm has been causing lots of accidents. The phone signal is poor and full of static, but Joe manages to learn they'll be there in 4 hours. Afterward, Joe informs the passengers of the 4-hour wait, causing them to start freaking out. When he tells them the driver has disappeared, their complaining gets worse. So Adrian has to yell to shut them up. He points out they have no signal on their phones, so they should just walk to the next station to call for help. Joe tries to explain it's dangerous, and he could lose his job, but the passengers team up against him, and he has no choice but to agree to be their guide. After Joe unlocks the door, the group leaves by making a line and walking next to the train, unaware someone is watching from the woods. Eventually, they hear something moving among the bushes, so Joe and Ellen go to investigate. To their shock, they find Tony's mauled body on the ground. The duo immediately heads back and tells the passengers to get back on the train. At the same time, howling and growling can be heard in the distance. It takes a few seconds for Joe to unlock the door, and everyone rushes aboard in fear. An elderly couple is slower than the others because of their age, and when they're finally jumping in, the monster manages to bite Jenny's leg. It even shakes her up and down between the doors before the group can finally drag her inside and lock the car. Afterward, Jenny is taken to a seat where Ellen washes the wound with water and wraps it up the best she can. Billy and Matthew try looking out the window with a flashlight, but they can't see anything out there. When Joe checks the door to be sure it's properly locked, the monster pounds on the train car and growls. So the group decides to be as quiet as possible. They can hear the creature's claws scratching the car, and the group waits until the howling is heard far from the train to speak again. Then Joe goes to the control car to try using the train phone, but there's no signal. At that moment, Billy joins him and reveals he's an engineering student. By taking a look at the controls, he can tell there's a fuel leak that caused the line to split when the train crashed. If they don't fix that, they'll never be able to move. Outside, it's shown that the train's antenna is broken, implying the creature did it. Joe explains the situation to the passengers, who begin discussing what kind of animal is their attacker. Adrian calls it a bear, but Nina points out that bears don't howl. Jenny says it wasn't an animal, but something more human. However, everyone thinks it's the shock talking. Suddenly, they hear noises inside another car and worry that the monster may be trying to get in. Joe grabs a fire extinguisher and goes with Billy and Adrian to investigate. They carefully cross the car and discover the noise is coming from the bathroom. As Adrian gets ready to strike, Joe unlocks the door, only to see Paul fall out. It turns out he was stuck in there since before the crash. The 4 guys go back to the group and Paul is told the whole story, but instead of freaking out about the monster, he's sad that he missed his stop. Sometime later, they check on Jenny's wound and notice it's getting worse. She's also got a fever. Kate notices Nina is young and scared, so she talks to her to comfort her with some stories about her own daughter. Suddenly, the creature starts pounding on the door again and then jumps on the roof, causing the train's lights to start failing. At that moment, Nina's phone gets signal and she receives a call from her mother, but as she tries to ask for help, the creature bursts in through the window. It grabs Nina by the legs and drags her out as she screams, so Kate tries to grab her hand to help her. However, Matthew drags her back because she would have been captured as well. Then they hear the beast mauling Nina on the roof and her blood can be seen on the windows. Terrified, the group rushes to hide in another car and Kate freaks out because nobody wanted to save Nina. An argument ensues until Jenny's husband Ged yells to make everyone shut up and reminds them they must work together to survive. The train has a box of tools, so the passengers start working on barricading every entry point of the car with pieces from the train itself, like the seats. Time passes and everyone gets more depressed by the minute. Jenny and Kate realize they didn't know Nina's name, and Jenny admits she was never able to have children, even though she wanted to. In a corner, Adrian talks to Joe, explaining he has 2 sets of keys because he has a nice place for his family and a secret apartment for his naughty adventures. He believes in doing what's necessary to get by even if it isn't nice, and asks Joe to team up with him to escape, leaving the weaklings behind. Before Joe can reply, Jenny pukes lots of blood and even 2 teeth. Another argument ensues on what to do, but it's interrupted when Joe notices Paul is missing. The barricade was moved and Adrian wants to put it back in place. However, Joe and Billy convince him to give them a minute to find Paul. Joe goes into the other car and finds Paul stuck in the bathroom again. While Joe tries to open it, the bathroom light breaks and the beast comes inside from above to attack Paul. Joe has to step back when the door gets damaged during the mauling, and soon the blood is coming out of the resulting holes. He takes a quick look through a hole and is horrified to see Paul's dying body. Then he tries to go back to the other car, only to discover Adrian blocked the door. Speaking of Adrian, he hears the noise and decides to leave the train to save himself, so he removes the barricade on the boarding door. However, it's locked and Joe has the key. Back to Joe. He keeps on pushing the door while watching the monster approach him. When he's about to be attacked, the others finally open the door and drag Joe into the car before blocking the door again. While the group piles up as many things as possible, Adrian tries to break the window with a fire extinguisher to no avail. Unfortunately, the beast is too strong and breaks through the barricade, causing Ellen to freeze. Thankfully, Joe acts fast and moves her out of the way before the monster can hurt her. Then the creature tries going after Joe, and as it roars in his face, Ellen stabs it. The monster immediately turns to hit her and sends her flying. So the guys take the chance to jump on it from behind to start beating it up and stabbing it with any object available. Billy gets grabbed by the neck and pushed against the ceiling, only to be dropped when Adrian hits the creature's stab injury with a fire extinguisher. At that moment, Matthew comes through with a fire axe and starts hitting the monster over and over until it's finally dead. Kate has to pull Matthew back as he has a breakdown. Seconds later, the group takes a closer look at the creature and notice a ring on his finger. Like Jenny said, it looks very human-like, so Matthew concludes it's a werewolf. Adrian remembers that people who get bitten transform as well, and now everyone is wary of Jenny, while some of the passengers cover up the body. It tells the story of a train that got off the rails in this area many years ago. The authorities discovered many bodies missing and others mauled, but an explanation was never found. He concludes the werewolf killed him back then too. At that moment, the beast wakes up and howls. So Joe immediately starts pounding its face with the fire extinguisher. In the forest, other werewolves hear the howl of their dying leader. Suddenly, Jenny's face starts changing, and she growls too. Adrian wants to kill her before she fully transforms, but Ged won't let him. The other passengers also push him back, but Adrian fights against their hold, refusing to give up. He breaks through and starts choking Jenny, so Joe punches him to knock him down. Then the group agrees to tie up both Adrian and Jenny using belts. Afterward, they decide on a plan. Billy will try to fix the train and teaches Ellen what buttons to press to get them out of there. As soon as the train reacts, Joe makes a speech through the speaker, trying to keep everyone's hopes up. Matthew and Billy get off the train and quickly find a leak. While Billy gets under the train to fix it, Matthew keeps watch. Inside, Kate reveals she and Adrian had a dirty night together some time ago, but Adrian doesn't bother to remember any of his one-night stands. Jenny starts having trouble breathing, and Adrian insists they should do something before it's too late. At that moment, Matthew hears a noise in the forest and goes to investigate, leaving Billy without light. In the forest, Matthew can hear Nina crying for help and follows her voice, only to find her body on top of a tree being devoured by a werewolf. Terrified, Matthew tries running away. However, the werewolves soon surround him. He tries defending himself with his axe to no avail, and the werewolves jump on him to eat him alive. In the train, everyone hears Matthew screams as he dies, followed by a loud howl. Jenny freezes and Adrian keeps asking Kate to kill her. Billy finally fixes the train, and the lights comes back. Thus, Joe and Ellen try to figure out the controls. Soon the werewolves approach the train, so Billy grabs the car and lifts his body to hide until the monsters go away. Unfortunately, they appear at the front window and startled Ellen and Joe, who finally activate the train. Billy has to hold on the car again not to be left behind. Suddenly, Jenny finishes transforming, so Kate rushes to release Adrian before Jenny breaks free with her new strength. Adrian tries to help Kate only for Jenny to knock him down. At that moment, another werewolf appears at the door and grabs Kate, who cries for help. However, Adrian kicks her to push her and the werewolf off the train. The train speeds away and Kate is left behind, quickly becoming werewolf food. As Ged tries to make his wife see reason, Adrian tries to fight Jenny again, hitting her with a wrench. Furious, Ged punches him back before he could kill her. Then Jenny jumps on her husband and bites his neck, causing his blood to rain. While Jenny tries to go after Adrian, Billy struggles to hold on and accidentally breaks the repairs he did, causing the train to stop again. Joe and Ellen rush out of the control car and stab Jenny right before she can kill Adrian. Then an angry Joe jumps on Adrian to beat him up, but Ellen stops him. The werewolves use the chance to enter the train, so Joe and Ellen rush to lock the door. Adrian realizes he'd have a better chance to escape if one person stays behind as bait. Thus he knocks down Joe. It's not enough to leave him unconscious, and Joe immediately retaliates, triggering a fight. While the men struggle on the ground, Ellen grabs a piece of sharp metal and cuts Adrian until he lets go of Joe. While Ellen takes care of her friend, Adrian blocks away and grabs the keys from the door before jumping out of the train. The werewolves quickly surround the duo, but before they can attack, Billy appears with a Molotov bomb ready. He throws it at one of the werewolves, causing it to burn and starting a fire. Then he lights up a torch and scares the other monsters into stepping back into the other car while giving Joe and Ellen a crowbar. This allows the duo to force the door open and jump out of the train while Billy gets captured and killed too. As Ellen and Joe run through the forest, they can hear the werewolves coming after them. Deciding it's too late, Joe kisses Ellen before telling her to go because he'll stay behind as a distraction. Crying, Ellen finds a path to run away while Joe starts fighting the werewolves with a piece of metal, managing to stab one of them. No matter how hard he fights though, the werewolves overpower him and he ends up getting bitten. Moments later, Ellen makes it to the next train station with Joe's name tag in hand. Meanwhile, Adrian continues to run through and find some clothes in the ground. The werewolves suddenly surround him and a newly transformed Joe jumps to attack.